Hey, soccer fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Sons of a Pitch and American Soccer Podcast. Tonight's episode, I am going to go off on an epic rant about VAR and offside because there's too much stupidity and ignorance going on right now, and I'm going to clarify a few things for you. Both the American fan and the English fans overseas have been contributing to what makes me just furious about the lack of understanding of these rules. We're going to get into some MLS headlines regarding Josef Martinez, Inter Miami, Sporting Kansas City, and Michael Parkhurst. And then we're also going to touch on a former MLS coach and men's national team player, Jesse Marsch, and what he's doing overseas. After the commercial break, we're going to round up all the games from this week's action and let you know how that affects the MLS playoffs. Stay tuned, and thanks for listening. Well, that was a wonderful guitar riff, and thank you all for tuning in again to the Sons of a Pitch and American Soccer Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Pateris, joined by Mike Guglielmi, my good friend and fellow host here. Mike, thank you again for making the long trek out to my beautiful recording studio. And you can see on YouTube, search for Sons of a Pitch Soccer. We are adding a few little things here, a few little jerseys, and a little bit of a Chicago Fire nod here, the old cap. So especially shout out retro jersey here, Hellenic College circa 1982, 83-ish. Hellenic College out in Brookline, Massachusetts. And then of course, you know, some of my favorite things here, the Crew, the US, and Everton. None of those teams actually playing very well right now, but yet that's what we've got. Next time when we record with you, Mike, you can put up your Javinko jersey, your TFC jersey, and your Javinko jersey, and that'll help decorate things,
sounds
right?
Good. Yeah, I like it.
Well, thank you all for tuning in again to the Sons of a Pitch. We especially want to thank everyone who's joined the conversation with us on Twitter. You can follow along at SOP Soccer. And we want to thank Bert Weigel, Kent Lewandowski, and MLS FC Miami. Not the official account, but a blog that follows everything Inter Miami and David Beckham. So you can check them out. They do a lot of Instagram stories, kind of keeping you up to date on everything going on for the expansion Inter Miami team. So thank you to all three of our new followers. Give them a follow and keep up with all of their content as well. You can like us on Facebook at Sons of a Pitch Soccer, and I do want to give a quick shout out to Joanna Petrowski Castle. A couple of weeks ago you liked us, and I'm sorry I haven't gotten to your name yet, so thank you, Joanna. Additionally, we are on YouTube. Hey, look at that. Catching up with modern technology here.
We're trying, man, we're trying.
So Mike's working hard on doing all things YouTube, and if you'd like to actually sponsor us and get your product featured on YouTube or get your business featured on our YouTube broadcast, reach out to us on email, podcast@sonsofapitchsoccer.com, or shoot us a DM on Twitter at SOPsoccer, and Mike will take care of you there. He puts his picks out every week. Are they good? Well, you have to tune in to find out. Spoiler alert, don't use it to bet.
They're not.
All for fun and entertainment, everybody. Also, you can join the conversation by subscribing to us on Stitcher, iTunes, and Google, as well as anywhere else you get your podcasts. Leave us a review on iTunes. Leave us a review on Google. Let us know how we're doing, and let other listeners and fans who want to join the American soccer conversation follow along with us. Also, I want to give a special shout out to Chris Sampras. He reached out to me to let me know that he had our podcast set on autoplay on his phone, and it turned on in the car when he got in the car with his wife and kids, and they heard my voice, and now they think I'm some sort of like big celebrity because I'm on the radio.
Well, we are.
So
we are celebrities.
Yeah, in our own minds. Celebrities in our own minds at the very least. Or at the very least of, a couple little girls of Chris's. So thank you, Chris, and thank you to your family for supporting the podcast. That being said, you know how to find us. You know how to jump into the conversation. So we're going to get into that conversation right now, Mike. Let's start with a few MLS headlines, shall we? Some of the big news around the MLS. And then I will get to that VAR rant that I promised earlier because we need to set the record straight on that stuff. So let's talk about the MLS, Mike. And I think the biggest headline as we head into the playoffs is coming out of Atlanta United.
It is. Josef Martinez the king, the goal-scoring, just wonder that is Josef Martinez. Lots of goals. Sidelined. Had a huge streak going. I think it was up to like 15 games or something straight in MLS that he has scored a goal, which is just unheard of.
I think it's only second to Lionel Messi as far as like current goal scoring streaks. Like it's unbelievable.
Ridiculous. Nothing that's ever been done here before, not even close. Just a great. He's been on a great run of form, and he has been since he came into the league with Atlanta a few years ago. The guy has just been unbelievable, and now that streak is now over because he ended up getting hurt. Non-contact play. Seemed like he just kind of twisted it the wrong way or something happened. And seems like it's a little bit of a knee injury that's going on.
Was it a non-contact, or did he collide with one of his own players? I think.
Oh,
maybe
that's
like
it.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but here's a guy who's rolling, just doing great, and now he's going to be out for a while. A lot of speculation. Some said, it looked really serious. Then it was, well, maybe it'll only be a couple weeks. Well, maybe it's going to be several weeks. No real exact timetable on it, but
right.
Looking like he's probably going to be out for the rest of the regular season, and will hopefully be coming back in the playoffs at some point there during the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that's best case scenario for Atlanta is that he is back for that first playoff game. If they are playing it cautious, and I think that's the play you need to right now, he is going to sit the rest of the regular season. The latest that I've heard and that I've followed from MLS sources and articles and other podcasts and things is that it's not ligament damage. It's possibly knee or ankle. More than likely it was some sort of knee injury. But the big question now is, if Martinez is out for the rest of the season, that's going to affect their seeding in the playoffs, of course. I think they did clinch a home game, but is it going to be the home game as the 2 seed or the home game as the 4 seed?
Right.
And if they do fall and they land in that 4 seed spot, most likely they're going to play New England. If New England ends up holding on to that 7 spot, right?
If they're the 2 seed, yeah.
Right. Or I'm sorry. Then if they are in that 4 seed, who's sitting 5th in the East?
That could be anybody. Well, right this moment it's Toronto FC. Could be DC. Could be the Red Bulls. Could be Toronto. It's really those teams are just right there together.
So do you think Atlanta has a chance of getting out of this first round matchup with whoever it may be if Josef Martinez does not play?
If it's in Atlanta, yes. If they get that 4 seed and that game is at home at Mercedes-Benz, I think he's huge to their team. With him, I think it would probably be a pretty easy pick, but without him, it might be a little bit tougher. But I still think they'd be able to do it against one of those 3 teams without Josef.
Right. You got to remember, Atlanta maybe didn't perform the way they wanted to at the beginning of the season, but then Martinez, 15-game goal streak, that does a lot for your team. That picks up a lot of slack as you institute a new system, as you work with a new coach, as you bring in some new players, give Pity Martinez more responsibility, you put more on his shoulders, So on the one hand, this could be a really great thing for Atlanta, and that everyone realizes they got to pick up the slack, play better individually, play better as a team, and maybe, just maybe, the opponents aren't going to know who to defend. Maybe they're going to overcommit to one player or another, and that opens doors for other players. But on the same time, it was Josef Martinez that opened those doors for players when he was on the field. So kind of remains to be seen what Atlanta's going to do. So keep your eye on Atlanta's formation and how they're going to play over these next couple weeks. That might give you an indicator of what they're going to do come that first round matchup in the playoffs. As it stands right now, they're in the 2 seed. They'd end up playing New England in that first game. They should still get by New England. We got to remember how much talent is on that roster. Josef Martinez is one man on a talented roster, though he is the man on that roster.
Yep.
We're going to stick with Atlanta real quick. We got some news from Michael Parkhurst, who put out a kind of a grainy cell phone video announcing his retirement at the end of the season. So, fan favorite, MLS favorite, kind of an MLS legend here, Mike, if you really think about his career. So, Mike, if you're an Atlanta fan, or if you're just a casual fan of the game, you don't have an allegiance one way or the other, Martinez gets hurt, Parkhurst announces his retirement. What's going through your head?
I don't know. I mean, it's tough to, it's really tough to think about that. I mean, Parkhurst, he is integral to Atlanta, but he's not a game changer. I don't think they'll have a problem replacing him. I think the big issue is with Joseph Martinez, but this injury, he'll be over the injury by the time next season kicks off. At least I would think, unless he comes back too early and really messes something up.
Right.
So I don't know. I think they're still kind of in a good spot. They're now if Pitty goes down hurt as well, or they lose someone like
Hey, if Viaba can't perform, if LGP gets hurt,
something like LGP.
Man, if Guzan picks up a knock somehow in the goal,
right. Then I'd be a little bit more concerned. I think they'll be okay given the timetable with Joseph Martinez, and then at least they've got a kind of a rejuvenated Michael Parkhurst for these last few games, because he's not going to want to go out in the playoffs without lifting that cup again. So.
Right, and that was kind of like an all-time great MLS scene of Parkhurst lifting the cup last year.
Right.
Just to kind of give the fans a perspective on Michael Parkhurst, he's pretty much won everything.
Yeah.
He won the U.S. Open Cup with New England in 2007. He played in Denmark, won the Danish Super League. When he was with the Crew, he had a couple playoff runs, playoff run. But then with Atlanta, of course, last year winning the MLS Cup, this year winning the U.S. Open Cup again, and the new Campeones Cup. He was on the U.S. roster for Gold Cup victories in 2007 and 2013. Individually, Rookie of the Year in 2005, Defender of the Year in 2007, Best 11 in 2007, and is a 6-time All-Star. So Parkhurst has done everything in the MLS. He's done it a little bit overseas, and guess what? Even 25 caps for the U.S. men's national team. So Parkhurst is, to me, like that. He might not be the star of the MLS,
right,
and like kind of elevating the league from the top, so to speak. But he has definitely raised like the minimum expectations of what a player is in the MLS. Like, you don't have to be Joseph Martinez or, let's say, a Landon Donovan if you want to talk domestic. You can be a Michael Parkhurst. And over the course of, I think, a decade or so in this league, drag the bottom of the league up and just make it a better overall league.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm going to remember Michael
Well
Parkhurst. Yeah. So let's move on to the next big headline. Sporting Kansas City and Yohan Quaze decide to part ways. I can't say I'm surprised, right, Mike?
I mean, the guy
walk me through this.
He hasn't produced for Sporting Kansas City since he's come over. I mean, he's had a couple moments here and there, but he's not living up to what the signing was supposed to be. Sporting Kansas City's struggling right now. They've been struggling all season. They had that good run in the CONCACAF Champions League, but other than that, it's been a struggle. So I can see. I mean, the guy seemed like a bit of a head case. So he's probably, I don't know if he's got an ego problem or what, but I can see some issues like that too. But not a big loss. I mean, Sporting Kansas City will bring up some homegrown kids and probably do it just as good.
Right. He definitely did not pan out from the stat sheet perspective, and you're right. Didn't look like he was really gelling from a locker room perspective either. I think Sporting Kansas City is very happy to have this new DP slot open. I'm pretty sure Quaze took up a DP slot. At the very least, he was an international spot, TAM player.
Yeah.
So they're freeing up a very useful asset, a very important asset. Right. Again, if not a DP, an international TAM level player, they can go out and sign that striker that's going to bring them back to playoff contender, conference contender, maybe competing for trophies. Hey, with the expanded Leagues Cup next year, you never know. Maybe they can bring home some sort of hardware. So I think that is the most important thing about this Quaze and Kansas City kind of splitting up, breaking up a little bit, is that they're going to be able to bring in a much bigger signing and hopefully a much more effective signing to help with their struggling offense. Because hasn't that been the story with Kansas City? we're just a striker
That's it.
away.
Yeah,
Just
I
a
mean,
striker away.
It's been that way for years, and to be honest with you, I don't even know if they go the route of a striker. Crozet was more of a winger type. I don't know if that's really their game, Vermees's game. I think they might just go the route of, some type of winger or some type of mid, maybe even like a wing back.
But an offensive player, right? It's got to be offensive.
You would think so, but you never know with Kansas City.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we've always kind of taken their defense and their defensive superiority for granted, whether it was Opara before he left for Minnesota or Zusi and Beasler. Like, those guys aren't getting any younger either. So it'll be really interesting to see how Kansas City restructures their roster over the next 2-3 years. If you didn't know, Peter Vermees also has an executive role within Kansas City. I think he might be either a GM or player director of player person, something like that,
okay.
Which gives him more roster control, more than most head coaches have. So maybe kind of a Bruce Arena type deal before Bruce Arena had it. So let's see how they restructure it. But if you're doing a like for like, you got to go out and get offense.
Yeah, for sure.
Ken, the next headline is from our expansion team, Inter Miami, who is still set. I thought they were coming in 2021, but now I'm seeing that I was mistaken.
Yeah.
They're coming in next year.
Yeah,
they're coming in hot.
They are coming in hot, especially with that field. I don't know if they've gotten that temporary ground, if they've gotten construction started there, if they've got that. I feel like they found some type of like environmental issue at the stadium. I don't know what they've got going on there. If they've got that fixed, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. But they're starting to sign some players, and they'll field the side somehow.
Well, I guess as far as the stadium goes, you can always play at the Marlins Stadium if you really are.
They play at Hard Rock or the Dolphins/Kane Stadium before they play at the Marlins Stadium.
Anyway, I think the stadium is probably going to be the least of their worries from getting the team up and going. The big thing, though, is that we want to talk about here, Mike, is player signings. We've heard the rumors. First it was Luis Suarez, then it was Lionel Messi, then it was Edson Cavani. The latest rumor, and actually probably the most likely to occur, is they are looking to sign David Silva from Manchester City. Silva is 33 years old, coming out of his contract, could be a potential free transfer at the end of his season with Man City. And for those of you who don't follow the Premier League or don't know much David Silva, even though he's 33, he's still playing on the best team in the world right now.
Right.
And by the way, his resume includes a World Cup with Spain, a couple of European Championships with Spain, 4 Premier League titles, 2 FA Cups, which is the domestic cup in England, as well as, Man City winning the Premier League a couple of times recently. So I have seen him being called a recruiter. I've seen him being called, a playmaker. He could do everything for this new Inter Miami squad. What do you think, Mike?
I don't really know much about him because I don't follow the Premier League. I've seen him play for Spain a little bit, but I don't know. It's another week, another rumor for Inter Miami. So until something happens and they put this, real cool, shiny video with some light pink and like the Miami logo, the flamingos in bright, neon, and they say this person has been signed, I can't really speculate on it. Every week it seems to be something else. Who knows? If it is this David Silva, good, I guess. I don't really. I mean, the credentials the guy has and the experience he has is huge.
Yeah.
I'm sure he would come in MLS and do well. I just don't know that much about him personally because I follow mostly MLS and a little bit of Serie A. And who knows? Until something gets serious and there's pen to put to paper, I can't. I don't know.
It does kind of indicate if this is probably the most realistic rumor that we've heard from Miami, that's kind of how they want to play. They want to have a very possession-oriented, if you know Pep Guardiola from international soccer, you know how he likes to play. Very possession-oriented, working the ball around, also quick to counter. David Silva can be the springboard for that. He can really control possession. He can launch a counterattack. And again, he could be that veteran presence on a squad that has already a handful of very young, up-and-coming South American players on the roster. So if they could get him, I think it's a great get. I think it makes Miami, assuming they come into the Eastern Conference, it would make sense, a playoff team right away. Like that is my bold prediction. If they sign David Silva, they're making the playoffs in their inaugural season.
Wow.
I think he would elevate everyone around him that much.
Wow.
That's my bold prediction for Inter Miami, Mike.
Okay, write it down. Let's see if this happens.
We got it here. It's on
got it
YouTube.
We
It's
got
on
it
the podcast.
Write it down. So yeah, I don't know. I
I'm
don't think
betting
one
on Pink.
player. I don't know if one player will make a team make the playoffs, man. I mean, some of the other guys they signed look good, but they got to field 11, not 4. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. But a little bit of news from Inter Miami. Another rumor coming out about coaching wise. Looks like they're looking at Santiago Solari, former Real Madrid coach or manager, who has some ties with Beckham. Played with Beckham in Real Madrid. Also played for, and I actually know him, played for Inter Milan back in the day. Real creative type midfielder. So it should be, maybe he's the coach. Who knows?
I think that would fit the style of play.
Yeah.
If what you're telling me is true. But again, rumors. That's what makes soccer fun. Right?
Inter Miami fans, we can't wait until this team is like there and they're on the field. All these rumors, it's just, and I'm sure it must be driving you guys just as nuts, if not more nuts, than us up here in Chicago. To just have these constants, like you're gonna have like this 12-month off season. and being a Toronto FC fan and winning the off season multiple times, they're fun a little bit, but then you kind of get tired of it. So I can't wait till they start playing, just like I'm sure you guys can't either.
We do want to touch a little more on the international scene. Former U.S. player, former Red Bulls New York coach Jesse Marsch, having great success overseas this season. As you know, he went over to Red Bulls Leipzig as an interim coach last year. Leipzig ended up hiring another coach permanently, and Jesse Marsch got to move within the Red Bull family of teams to Red Bulls Salzburg in the Austrian league. And since taking over as the Salzburg head coach, this is what he has done to start this season. 7 wins and 1 draw. And the first 7 were wins. Only most recently did he have the draw.
Wow.
Plus 28 goal differential.
Not bad.
And Jesse Marsch, the first American to coach in the UEFA Champions League, in the European Champions League.
Wow.
And in his first game, he gets a 6-2 victory over Belgian side Genk. So not only is he the first American to coach in the Champions League, he's the first American to win a game in the Champions League. By the way, Jesse Marsch, also from Racine, Wisconsin.
Right up the road.
Tip of the hat to our Midwestern fellow Jesse Marsch, getting things done over in Austria. And really paving the way, I think, for American coaches overseas. We saw Bob Bradley almost did that when he was with Swansea, but he was kind of set up as the fall guy for what was going on there a couple years ago. We did see David Wagner recently in the Premier League at Huddersfield Town. He's dual citizen, American-German, but considered an American coach in the Premier League. Gets promoted, gets relegated. So, his kind of reputation as an American coach overseas, not so much. But we got Jesse Marsch getting it done, and it really shows what these massive ownership groups like Red Bulls, like Manchester City Football Group, can do to really kind of elevate world soccer and put the spotlight on talent that you might not normally see.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. Do you have any other headlines? Anything you want to talk about before I kind of take over and just rant for a minute?
The floor is yours, sir.
All right, everyone. Sit down if you're not already. Get comfortable if you're already sitting down. Because I want to talk to you about VAR and offside. And just the insanity that has erupted around social media over the last few days. It all sparked off in the Tottenham-Leicester game in the Premier League on Saturday morning. And it's something that we've had to deal with as MLS fans. And now the world gets to deal with it because the International Football Association Board put out these new rules using VAR. FIFA has adopted it. It's VAR is here. It's not going anywhere.
Right.
So we need to make sure you know what the rule is before you spout off on Twitter or start throwing things at the TV or get mad at the water cooler at work. Hey, are there still water coolers at work? Do people still hang out and talk like that?
I don't think so.
Yeah, we just we just got terrible coffee in my break room.
Yeah, we just Skype to each other at our desks.
Yeah, there you go. So anyway, now, in this Tottenham game that sparked it all, the Tottenham player was offside. He was called offside on a goal. The side referee a lot of fucking air traffic tonight, man.
Yeah.
Properly did not raise his flag and allowed the play to continue, allowed Tottenham to score their second goal to go up 2-0, and then the VAR referee called in for a check. Upon further review, the Tottenham player was offside and the goal was disallowed. All I saw on Twitter, all I saw on social media, all I heard people talking about on the games and broadcasts was, that's not clear and obvious error. How can they use VAR to review clear and obvious error? It's only in certain instances. There was an English soccer writer who even said, well, the MLS doesn't even use VAR for offside calls. So it just shows you how ignorant people are of what's going on.
Right.
So let me tell you what the rule is here, because I'm sick of hearing the stupidity, and I don't want any of our followers to ever get this wrong again. So if you look up the International Football Association board rules of the game, VAR is only used in 4 situations: goals or no goal decisions, penalty or no penalty decisions, direct red cards, straight reds, or a case of mistaken identity. So if the VAR official initiates a check and the check indicates a probable clear and obvious error or serious missed incident, then they can call the referee and ask him, hey, look, you should take a look at this. But again, it all comes down to the referee on the field. He gets the final say. He can go do a check if he wants to, or he can go do a review if he wants to. He can waive off the check. But key is, the rule states clear and obvious error or serious missed incident. The second half of that is what's important. Serious missed incident. Because, Mike, let's use our brains. Let's use the thing between our ears, which sports fans are often known for turning off either voluntarily or through alcohol, so I will give you that. If a player is offsides, Mike, he either is or isn't.
Right.
There's nothing subjective about it. I even saw on Twitter during this Tottenham game, like, people saying, well, he maybe is a millimeter offside. Well, then he's offside. There is no gray area. He is or he isn't. So the clear and obvious error standard is not used for an offside call. And again, Mike, if it was just a run of play and the ball goes out for a goal kick or a throw in or the defense clears it and the side official doesn't raise his flag, they're not going back and checking that because it's an offside call. Right. The only time they're doing it is if that leads to a goal, and then they're using the serious missed incident standard to see if the player was or was not offside. No clear and obvious error standard. So please, people, stop saying when you're talking offside about the clear and obvious error. The proper standard is serious missed incident. The IFAB rules clearly state that. There's been a couple broadcasters who have stated that, but for the vast majority of fans, social media wackos, and other broadcast people, you just don't know it. But hey, you listen to our podcast and now you do.
Now you do. And that's what social media is for. Just to spread the craziness.
It's fake news, Mike.
Feed
it's fake soccer news.
Feed the crazy, man.
So that is my rant on the offside rule. Those are our headlines. That's the first half of our show. We're going to take a quick break and hear from our sponsors. And again, if you have a business or would like to sponsor our YouTube feed and get your product or your business on our show, shoot us a direct message on Twitter at SOPsoccer or email us podcast@sonsofapitchsoccer.com. Figure out how you can join our growing family of sponsors and supporters and those who are promoting the conversation of soccer in the United States. But in the meantime, here's this. Well, welcome back from our commercial break, everyone. Again, thank you to our sponsors, Donovan Food Brokerage and Premium Pure Iceland Spring Water. We appreciate your support in everything we do, and we hope to continue to grow this partnership. Now, we're going to get into Mike's favorite part of the show, the League Roundup, where he gets to dive in a little more in depth and tell us everything that happened around the MLS over the last week of games. So, Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you. Enlighten us with your wisdom and your commentary as to the soccer matchups, the MLS matchups from this past week.
All right, so we go all the way back to the midweek games of last week. FC Cincinnati hosting Atlanta United. Here is a Cincinnati side that is just struggling. Expansion, they're just trying to get anything they can throughout the rest of the season, and it was not going to happen against one of the East best in Atlanta United. 2-0 victory for Atlanta. That's pretty much all that needs to be said about that game, is you've got one of the better teams in the East playing against the worst team in MLS, and the result was as it should be.
Also, please note, and this isn't to rip on FC Cincinnati, I don't like to kick someone when they're down, and Cincinnati has been really down.
Yeah.
But Cincinnati has set the record for the worst defense in MLS history as far as goals conceded. They have conceded the most goals in MLS history, surpassing, I think it was last year's Minnesota United squad.
Okay.
So so maybe then there's your silver lining. You know, Minnesota had a historically bad defensive season, and now has come back to be a very competitive Western Conference team, make the U.S. Open Cup Finals. So, hey, maybe Cincinnati is just an Ike Opara away of turning things around next season, or an Ozzie Alonso away from turning things around. I don't know. So, take hope, Cincinnati fans. Take hope.
It can't get much worse.
It kind of makes me laugh that the rivalry between Cincinnati and Columbus is the hell is real rivalry based on the apocalyptic religious billboards on the highway separating the two cities. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, hell sure is real for these fans, because it was not a good year for Ohio soccer.
No, not at all. Crew, Cincinnati, yeah, rough year. Moving along, first leg of the Canadian Championship final, Montreal Impact hosting Toronto FC.
We're going north of the border.
We are going north of the border, and one team took it seriously, the other team did not. Montreal put out a full starting 11, complete 100% side. Toronto made 9 changes. This was basically TFC2 with a couple players left, and surprisingly, it was only a 1-0 victory for Montreal. No away goals for Toronto FC. Second leg, back at BMO Field, Montreal has that 1-goal lead on aggregate, and it was pretty clear, as which we'll get into. We'll talk a little bit more about the Toronto FC game in the weekend when they traveled out to LAFC. A lot of the build-up in the week previous to this Canadian Championship final was, this is our game, we're all about the Canadian Championship, this is what's most important to our club, and then he puts out 9 changes and puts out his best starting 11 in LA cross country. So it seemed like was going to kind of do the opposite, right? Put out the best for the Canadian Championship, leave those guys in Toronto, let them rest, send the B squad out to LAFC. Did not do so. But in this matchup, a 1-0 victory for Montreal. Their fans are happy. Probably should have been more. If they did more, with Toronto not getting a away goal, probably would have put the tie away, but they did not. So a wonder goal from Piatti. Who else for Montreal? And we get set for leg 2, the championship, to be decided on Wednesday night here in a couple days.
2 questions for you, Mike. 1, how well did Daniel Lovitz play for Montreal? Right? Everyone's favorite USMNT player. How well did Lovitz play?
I mean,
you can tell I'm serious.
They had a clean sheet, man. He's a defender. They had a clean sheet, so there you go.
Okay, anyway, next question. Serious question here, Mike. You had said that a lot of the press leading up to this game was, we're taking the Can Champs seriously.
Right.
And yet they roll out 9 changes to their starting lineup.
Yeah.
Can we trust Greg Vanney anymore? Is this something that we got to start questioning this guy? I know on our podcast, over the last year and a half or so, we've been saying Vanney has earned the benefit of the doubt for everything he's done with Toronto. To turn them from perennial cellar dweller into a championship team. Can we say that anymore about him? Can we trust him?
No. He's been one to hold the cards close to the vest. But no, you can't. You know, he's just trying to figure out what's best for his team. He doesn't care what if he has to lie about it, kind of like a politician. So yeah, can't trust them.
Head coaches and politicians can't trust them. You heard it here. Well, moving on to another game where I couldn't trust any prediction or outcome. Portland Timbers hosting the New York Red Bulls. The Red Bulls fighting for a playoff berth. Portland doing the same thing. I think the Red Bulls I should say the Portland Timbers had more to gain from this win.
Yeah.
But yet the Red Bulls went across country and came home with 3 points, Mike. This was just kind of the first part of their playoff clinching run over the last week. If you're the Portland Timbers, you're scratching your head here, man. And you put out a couple of tweets about the Timbers, so why don't you tell us what your thoughts were watching the games and kind of what the response was you got from that?
Yeah, so I mean the Timbers, they're not doing well right now. They've got all their games at home. When you kind of expect the team to do well, especially in MLS, that road and home difference is very, very vast. Portland just can't seem to get it done. I mean, this is a team who lost to DC United at home. Then they lose to the Red Bulls at home. They haven't scored a goal in 3 games now, when you count the next game on the weekend, which we'll get into in a little bit. This team is just not firing on all cylinders. Some of the tweets that I put out was, one, I was in complete shock when Diego Valeri came on for Brian Fernandez, and Taylor Twellman was talking about how Brian Fernandez just seems totally out of it. Like, he came in all guns blazing and was just tearing up the league, scoring goals. He hasn't done so lately, and he just kind of seems like a pedestrian out there. And there's a team, the tweet I put out was, wait a minute, you haven't scored in 2.5 games, and you're not starting Diego Valeri? Like, what the hell is going on?
Right. He did start in this game against the Red Bulls, but it was the next game.
It was the next game, yeah,
that
against Minnesota,
he did not start. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, like you want to look at their roster. They sub out Blanco. I'm sorry, they bring in Blanco for Christian Paredes in the 73rd minute. Like, both of those guys need to be on the pitch.
Right.
They bring in Andy Polo in the 81st to try and bump up some offense. But this is what blows my mind. Like, you're down 1-0 after the 3rd minute. You get no good scoring opportunities. You only have 3 shots on goal the whole game.
Right.
Despite having 60% possession. Why are you waiting to the 73rd, 81st, and 85th minute to make changes? Like, clearly nothing was working before then.
From what I'm seeing with the Timbers right now, Savarese might be on the hot seat, because this is it seems to be some coaching decisions. Now maybe they'll come out of it and all will be well. It's kind of like TFC, right? A few weeks ago, I was even to the point which I didn't think I'd get to be saying, hey, hashtag Vanny out, like it's time. He's making all these wrong decisions. Kind of turned it around since then. Maybe we'll see the same thing with Savarese.
Hashtag Savarese out. Yes? No? Okay. But yeah, if you go from a MLS Cup runner-up to not making the playoffs, yeah, you're probably on the hot seat.
Yeah.
I think on the flip side for Portland, though, Savarese wants to play a different style. He wants to play a possession-oriented game. He wants to be able to pass, and as everyone's cliche is, let's play flowing, beautiful, attacking soccer. Portland doesn't have the players to do that. Blanco and Valeri are getting up there. So is Diego Chara. They're getting up there. They bring in Fernandez. He ignites the team for a few games, for a bit of a stretch there. You might have to blow things up in Portland. Anytime Portland tries to change it up a bit, this is what happens. They end up dominating possession but losing 2-0. So they're going to have to go back to their typical defend, bunker and counter type of strategy that worked. You remember the famous Christmas tree formation from last season, the 5-4-3-2-1 formation.
Yeah.
So Portland's got some soul searching to do from a managerial and administrative standpoint of who they're going to bring in, what they want their roster to look at, and if they can salvage this season.
I mean, we've talked about it, in the past. Is their window closing, right? We thought in the beginning of the year probably their window did close. Then it kind of opened back up a little bit. Now it seems to be closing again. So this isn't a roster where you're going to have it together for another 3 or 4 years. Valeri, their biggest piece, doesn't really have 3 or 4 years left in him regardless, just because of his age. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, that window is just kind of drafty.
Yeah.
That's how it is to me.
Yeah.
Next game, sticking in the Western Conference, Seattle Sounders hosting FC Dallas, and I'm going to say this game, FC Dallas earned the draw.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you have a different perspective on it, Mike.
I did not watch it, so I couldn't tell you.
Well, that's unfortunate. I'd say FC Dallas going to Seattle. Again, let's look at the standings as they stand right now after these games were played. Seattle's in the 2 spot. Dallas is in the 6 spot. So Dallas was fighting for it. I think Seattle just kind of was content to maybe walk out with a point. No one's going to catch LAFC to take over the number 1 overall seed in the West. So Dallas went out and earned themselves a draw, 0-0, a lot of hard defending. You ended up actually having Seattle picking up a red card in the 86th minute, so maybe they had a bit of a push at the end there, but you didn't see any really attacking-minded subs coming in from Dallas. So a solid point for them, kind of preserving their spot in the playoff picture. But as we know, out west, the only guaranteed playoff team right now is LAFC. Everyone, 2 through 7 is up for grabs, and 8, 9, and 10 are, and even 11, Sporting Kansas City, who we talked about earlier, they still are not mathematically eliminated from the playoffs.
Mind-boggling.
So good for Dallas to pick up that point. We'll see how they close out the season and if they can finish, top half of the West or possibly finish on the outside looking in. I think they're in. Anyway, we'll pay it a little lip service here. Leagues Cup, Cruz Azul beats Tigres 2-1 to win the inaugural Leagues Cup. It was interesting to hear on MLS Extra Time, the Leagues podcast, that Mexico sent their 4 best teams and the MLS sent their 4 worst teams,
basically.
Because I really think it was a business move and something.
It totally was.
He's the owners, hey, look, we all know you top 4 teams are playing for MLS Cup right now and Supporter Shield. And, LAFC is going to set a record, so we're not going to send you to this ridiculous new exhibition tournament. Right. Those are my words, not the league's words. Yeah. But Mexico's look, we sent our team. We're going to continue to kick your ass. Yeah. I think that's what Mexico's attitude is.
And that's what they did.
Yep.
I mean, and one of the interesting things to me was this is a midweek game at Sam Boyd Stadium in Las Vegas. Las Vegas. There's no MLS franchise there.
You got the lights, the USL team.
Yep, you got the lights, the USL team. But I mean, this is a midweek game in a non-MLS market that had 20,132 people. Now, I'm not exactly sure what the capacity is at Sam Boyd Stadium, but this is insane to me that this game outdrew 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 teams in MLS that they get on their average attendance for the season. And this is 2 teams that are not in the league in this country on a midweek game. Remember the friendly in Chicago where they drew 61,000 for Club America and somebody else?
Yep. I think we know why the MLS wants to expand their partnership with Liga MX. It's all ticket sales. Ticket sales. All right, let's move on, Mike. We had an East versus West matchup on Saturday the 21st. Atlanta United hosting San Jose Earthquakes. And this is the game that Atlanta United fans will remember that Joseph Martinez picked up that injury despite a 3-1 victory over the Quakes. Now, the thing that really came out of this game, okay, you've got a great Atlanta team that beats up on a decent San Jose team who maybe has been playing a little bit better than they should be this season. But, Mike, you were just telling me while we took a little break here that Mateus Almeida had a few choice words after this game.
He did, for the referee. What does it always come down to in MLS? But the pro referees and the refs just making a hash out of games. Or so to say. I mean, it's all up in the air for interpretation. But in this one, Miram gets on the board in the 4th minute.
It's a mere minute.
It's a mere minute. There you go. And then Guzan with an own goal in the 27th minute. This game was 1-1. And then a second yellow to Espinoza for San Jose, which was pretty interesting, to say the least. And then it was 1-1 the entire way through. Martinez gets hurt. in like the 70th minute or something like that, 75th, 80th, in that time frame. And then, this is a 1-1 game. San Jose's in this game, even being down a man. And then Hinman gets on the board, gets the goal for Atlanta. Another red card for Wondolowski in this one, a straight red to Wondolowski. And then, of course, Pity Martinez buries it and just finishes it in the second minute of stoppage time. But Almeida was pissed. I mean, he had some choice words to say for the referees, and basically, to make a long story short, was like, this is ridiculous. We want to be one of the top leagues in the world. We can't have these types of refereeing going on in our games. And, all the San Jose fans are going nuts. Like, if we lose Almeida, the best coach in this hemisphere, because of refereeing, MLS is going to have a lot of answering to do, and it's true. I think you're starting to see a little bit of a trend now with big-name players and now big-name coaches coming out against the league, coming out against the refereeing. Look at Wayne Rooney about the charter flights and all that kind of stuff. And now, all of a sudden, there's rumors out there that the new bargaining agreement's going to have unlimited charter flights, right? So these big-name guys are making comments because they're seeing action get done when they're making these comments. And, they've got to do something about the refereeing. I don't know exactly what happened with all of these in this game. I didn't watch this game. I watched the highlights, kind of fast-forwarded through the ESPN Plus replay because it was a nationally televised game. But, look, this they've got to do something about the refs. Period.
I think we've seen it week in and week out that there's at least 2 or 3 games where the officials leave their mark on the outcome, or at least on a segment of play. And in this particular game, we've got 3, 6, 7 cards that were issued, 6 yellows, 1 second yellow becoming a red for Espinoza, and then a straight red to Wondolowski. And this is what's interesting. Wondolowski in the 91st gets the red for a foul and abusive language. Foul and abusive language. Not the foul, right, but foul and abusive language.
What's the abusive language? I really want to know, because this is a bunch of grown men playing a competitive sport. Competitive juices are flowing. You cannot tell me that these guys never utter any profanities during the game.
I feel like this was directed towards the referee, so that's why he got the red.
I understand that.
But that tells you something else, too. You're in the 91st minute, and it just went 2-1 in favor of Atlanta United. And Wondolowski, a guy who, I don't know if his reputation is one of a nice guy, but it's definitely not one of a malcontent or someone who's got this vitriol that's going to come after you or whatever, that just hates referees. Like, it doesn't seem characteristic for Wondolowski to do this, let alone get red carded for something like this. And then Almeida also got tossed. So you're right, Mike, and I think a lot of the fans are right, and I think a lot of the teams and players, coach, everyone is frustrated with pro refereeing. But, I don't see anyone doing anything about it. I don't see any announcements coming from pro, coming from MLS. We don't know what these officials go through. Like, when the NFL had a refereeing crisis, especially leading to a strike, and then you saw how good the referees were when you had scab refs coming in, if you want to call it that, depending on your union views. Pro's got to do something. The league's got to do something. You're right. If you want to compete and be a top team, heck, in the Western Hemisphere, let alone the world.
Right. No, for sure. For sure. So that, the big news out of this is the refereeing, as well as Joseph Martinez's injury, which we touched on earlier in the podcast. Moving right along, the next game up is Vancouver Whitecaps hosting Columbus Crew. This game, I watched this one, was very, very surprised to see, first of all, the amount of fans in the stands for Vancouver. I know this team was eliminated from playoff contention. The season is over, but there was nobody there at BC Place. Their announced attendance was 16,683. There ain't no way there was 16,000 people in that building. There was so much gray and orange in those seats. Even the Southsiders, man, their supporters section was damn near empty. There was, if I had to put a number on it, I would say maybe 6,000 or 7,000 people at that game. And even the Southsiders section, it was probably at like 25 to 30% capacity. Sad, really sad. But again, from an ownership standpoint and from a fan standpoint towards the ownership, when you're putting out garbage for year after year after year after year, what do you expect? This team is eliminated from the playoffs. Nobody's going to show up. It's a beautiful day in Vancouver in September. There are not many left. There's a lot of people that are like, you know what, I got tickets to this game, but it doesn't matter if I go or not. I'm going to go to the park and walk around Stanley Park and, do something outside and enjoy this. But back to the game. Oh, my God. The Vancouver Whitecaps. The TSN announcers were ripping on these guys. Zardes
the
gets a
Canadians
penalty.
are so polite, Mike.
They
What
are,
we
but they
talking
were
about
ripping,
here?
man. It was bad. So you get a Zardes penalty kick in the 18th minute.
Wait, I'm sorry. Did you see Zardes scored another goal?
He did. He scored another goal.
Oh,
this
all
time
right,
from the spot. There you go.
All right.
And Columbus is up 1-0, and you go through. Yep, those guys right there. They're up 1-0, and probably in like the 70th, 75th minute, Columbus is passing the ball around. Vancouver's not running after them. The guys are just kind of standing around. They're looking at him. They're like, oh, look, he's going to pass the ball over there. Oh, there it goes. Oh, yeah. What are we doing? Is it the 90th minute yet? Ref, when is this game over? Can we go home yet? These guys were not even pressing the ball. TSN announcers are ripping the team. They're like, these are professional athletes. What are you doing out there? This is disgusting. And then they continue doing that until about the 92nd minute. And then one of the last kicks of the game, they probably shouldn't even, there was only 3 minutes of stoppage time added. It was in the 4th minute of stoppage time. Ali Adnan goes running down the left-hand side, swings a big curling cross into the middle. Freddie Montero jumps up, scores, ties the game. They get the tying goal. But with that type of performance, you can see why there was nobody in the stands. It was unreal. I've never seen a professional team of professional sports players play so disgustingly in all of my life.
And I think that's where we're going to end that recap. But if you want to talk about disgusting displays of athleticism and performance, next game up, FC Cincinnati versus the Chicago Fire. The worst team in the league versus probably the most underperforming team in the league, given the talent on the roster in Chicago, ends in a 0-0 draw. How fitting for these two teams to end up
Chicago
with
is
neither's
just
goal.
They're just holding on to the slight chance of making the playoffs and getting into that 7th spot. And they go into the worst team in the league. Toronto went there the week before, dominated them 5-1. Mind you, there were some more absences, and it wasn't the same Cincinnati team that Chicago was playing. Atlanta went there 1-2-0. Chicago goes there, can't get anything done. Katai was questioned for his, going after it and his mentality in this game. The only positive out of this is that Nelson Rodriguez and Joe Mansueto were hanging out with the supporters up in the supporters section at Nippert Stadium and taking pictures and, trying to win over a few supporters that made the trip. That's the only positive.
They're shaking hands and kissing babies right now. That's all they're doing. If they make the playoffs,
Didn't
God
we talk
bless
about
them, but
coaches being politicians? Now apparently owners and GMs are like politicians as well.
must be a soccer thing. I don't know, but you're right. Like looking at these two grossly underperforming teams this season, it was about even on possession, 53-47 in favor of Chicago. Shots on goal, 3-1 in favor of Cincinnati. Or I'm sorry, 3-1 in favor of Cincinnati. The possession really wasn't threatening. I think the final third possession, Chicago had 71% of their passes in the final third. Cincinnati 62%. So it's not like they were really going at it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Chicago comes out sitting comfortably in the 8th spot, just outside of the playoffs, 3 points behind New England. But New England's got a game in hand on them. So we'll see what happens. I just don't see Chicago making the playoffs or doing anything in the playoffs if they do. And I think the league would be worse off if this particular Chicago Fire team made the playoffs. Like
Yeah.
that's the only thing I can say.
There's a game in hand. New England has who's up in the next matchup. They've got a game in hand over Chicago. Chicago's got TFC coming to town next week, which I will be at. So TFC fans, if you're traveling and you're listening to our pod, hey, come on over, say hi. I'll have my Sons of a Pitch Soccer Podcast T-shirt on, and Chicago's just going to be. I mean, they've got to get a win out of that against one of the hottest teams in MLS right now. Don't see it happening. They've got to make up points on New England. Don't see it happening.
And a New England team who, moving on to our next game,
Right.
hosted and drew Real Salt Lake 0-0.
Yep. Should have had more out of that one. Yeah,
Oh,
New
yeah?
England, from what I saw, New England should have won that game. Gustavo Bo missed a complete sitter, just skied it.
Ugh.
But, should have had more out of that. I did pick this one correctly. I saw a draw because I thought RSL was a better team. But being on the road, I figured they would just maybe get the result of the draw, which they did. But New England, it's disappointing. You're right there in that 7 spot. You want to clinch something. You want to get a little bit better of a position, and you can't get it done at home.
Meanwhile, RSL just kind of content, like you said, to take that road point and just kind of maintain their position in the 5th spot in the Western Conference. Next, kind of a disappointing performance. Again, kind of the theme of the week here. Houston Dynamo defeating Orlando City 2-1. Disappointment for Orlando City. I mean, Houston, again, technically not eliminated, but probably not making the playoffs. Meanwhile, you got Orlando City, who should be fighting and playing better,
Right.
and an Orlando City roster who shouldn't be scoring less than 2 goals a game. We've been riding them all season, and we're waiting for them to do something. And no, nothing. I think the best thing Orlando City has done this year is host the All-Star Weekend. Honest to goodness, Mike, when are they going to put it all together? I really like their coach. I really like him, and I think he's doing as good of a job as he can with the roster, who's underperforming. But at some point, when are we going to question James O'Connor? When are we going to question the executives bringing in this talent? And when are we going to question guys like Dom Dwyer, who aren't performing, Brian Rowe, who you can't,
Brian Rowe should not be a starting.
Shouldn't be starting. Like, when are we going to start questioning some of their defensive players and giving up these goals that they're giving? Like, is Akindelli the solution? Is Tasho Akindelli the long-term solution for Orlando City? Like, they're going to have a really rough offseason, Mike. They're going to have some coming to Jesus moments here and looking at themselves in the mirror. Like, what are we doing? Do we have to blow it up?
I think they do. And let's leave it at that.
All right. Either way, good for the Dynamo.
Good win. Good win for Houston at home. All right, Sporting Kansas City at home against Colorado Rapids. This game, Colorado goes up a man when I believe they were down 2-1 or 2-0 maybe even, and then Colorado just comes storming back to get the victory. I think they were down 2-0 to Sporting Kansas City, and let's see, it was the 20th minute. So they were up a man and scored 3 goals up a man to come back and take the 3 points over Sporting Kansas City in a matchup of 2 teams that are not going to make the playoffs in the Western Conference.
And I think nothing more need be said there.
You got it.
Not a very good game, not a very pleasing game to the eye, and but Colorado still has that mini resurgence. Going
they're
for
still,
them. So they're really building for next season.
Right, they're doing well under Robin Fraser, which is good to see.
5 points out with 2 more games left. Not mathematically eliminated, but more than likely eliminated.
Right, exactly. Next up, LA Galaxy hosting Montreal Impact. A Montreal Impact side who did not bring Ignacio Piatti, did not bring a couple other of their starting players that they are leaving at home to play in that second leg of the Canadian Championship. Zlatan Ibrahimovic gets on the board for LA, of course. Then he assists a second goal. LA wins this one 2-1, really pretty much putting a cap on Montreal's season as well. They might be able to squeak into that last spot, being 4 points down. But with that game in hand that New England has, probably not going to happen. Gotta say, this was a story of the Canadian teams going to LA. And one team brought their starting lineup to LA. The other team left their starting lineup at home. One team is going for that Canadian Championship. The other team is going for the MLS type of action. So, speaking of that MLS type of action, the last game on this Saturday night was LAFC hosting Toronto FC. Toronto FC bringing their full content of lineup. This one was a great game to watch, really exciting game. Toronto FC probably played their best game of football / soccer that I have seen since 2017 when they won and dominated the league and won MLS Cup. The passing was unbelievable. They were creating chances left and right. They were scoring goals through Tsubasa Endo taking the lead in like the 18th or 20th minute. Great game from Toronto FC. They were leading this game the entire game until the last minute of stoppage time when Mavinga went to clear a ball into the stands and missed the ball and crushed the LAFC player, resulting in a VAR check and a penalty, which Vela, who had a very, very quiet night, otherwise the defense did extremely well to shut him down, steps up to the penalty kick spot and smashes it home to give LA the draw. Kind of a moral victory for Toronto FC. They brought their guys. They had said, Vanny had said during this match then, this is a game where if we want to talk about big game environments and big games going into the playoffs, this is what we need to do. They clinched a spot based on the other results and the draw. So he's focused on the MLS season, the MLS Cup playoffs, and it was a good measuring stick for Toronto FC, who's very hot right now, to go into the bank and be minutes away from taking a result.
I think it gives Toronto FC a lot to build on come playoff time, but at the same time, if you want to be glass half empty about it, you play your best game and you still come out with a draw. But hey, you're playing one of the greatest teams in MLS history.
Right. One
of the greatest regular season teams in MLS history. So,
and the way I look at it, if it is the MLS Cup final at the bank, it's going to penalties. Or it's going to extra time at least.
Right. TFC is not intimidated by the environment they're in.
Right.
So we're approaching the end of our show, so just real quickly wanted to hit up the last few games from this past Sunday. Portland played Minnesota to a 0-0 draw in Portland again. Giving up points at home. FC Dallas draws New York City 1-1, keeping their playoff hopes alive.
Yep.
And again, kind of taking people by surprise, beating one of the hottest teams in the Eastern Conference. Red Bulls go down to Philly, they host Philly and end up winning 2-0, clinching their playoff spot. Good on the Red Bulls, and I wonder if Philly was just kind of coasting.
What's going on, dude? What's going on?
Coasting to the playoffs? Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe. They got to be fighting with Atlanta and New York City to keep that one spot, and they're kind of falling off.
And then the final game of the weekend, DC, hosting cross-country travelers Seattle Sounders, winning 2-0. Good on DC, finally getting back on track, grabbing all 3 points, making sure that they don't have that precipitous fall from, the 3 or 4 seed to out of the playoffs. So DC kind of going to build a little momentum as we come to the last couple weeks of the season. So with that being said, we're going to wrap things up here on our end. Thank you to all of our listeners, because without you, we have nothing. Thank you to our sponsors, Donovan Food Brokerage and Nice Premium Iceland Pure Spring Water. We appreciate your support. And for all you potential or future sponsors, hit us up on Twitter at SOPsoccer, online at www.sonsofapitchsoccer.com, or via email, podcast@sonsofapitchsoccer.com. Let us know about what you think about the show, how you can join the conversation, and how you can join our sponsorship family that's growing. Especially, again, thank you to the listeners. And thank you to you, Mike, for joining me week in and week out and just having some fun, talking soccer.
Nick. I love it, Nick. Isn't it fun?
A lot of love here. We appreciate you, everyone. Have a great week.